One Punch Man Season 2 is about steroids. Let me explain. One Punch Man has a strong foothold in fitness. Saitama's very simple and very poorly constructed routine gave him superpowers, and it inspired a lot of people in the real world to begin working out. So I feel like the manga, the webcomic, the TV show, it all can link to physical training. Now, this is probably not the only lens to view the show through. It's probably not what the author intended, but I still feel like it's a valid way to watch the show. For Season 2 specifically, one of the things that stood out to me were the monster cells. They allowed humans to skip ahead and unlock a massive boost in power at the cost of their humanity. And I feel like we have an analog for that in the real world, and that's steroids. Steroids and the monster cells give people a very large boost in power, and for the monster cells, the downside is that you sacrifice your humanity. For steroids, you sacrifice your health. Now, the monster cells give you the power instantly. Steroids, you still have to train, you still have to work for it, but it's drastically easier. You're able to get away with training poorly, you're able to get away with training less, and then if you train perfectly, you train intensely, and you're using steroids, then you get much farther than humanly possible. They say the same thing for the monster cells. They say that it takes people past their natural limit. I personally disagree with this, just because Saitama's training basically did the same thing, and I don't see any reason why, if anybody else did the training the same way that he did, they also would not achieve the insane amount of power that Saitama has. So, the natural limit in the One Punch Man world doesn't really exist, so therefore monster cells cannot take you past that. But that's my opinion, that's my understanding of the show. I might be wrong on that one. But all of this is best seen during the martial art tournament. We see the people who are not interested in taking the monster cells. Most of them are heroes. They value their strength, they value their power, only so far as it is useful in protecting others. Taking the monster cells would contradict their main goal, which is to protect others. Now, they become the monsters that they were trying to fight, trying to destroy. Now, there's also a third category of people who say no to the monster cells, but they're not heroes. They don't care about helping others. They say no for selfish reasons. Some characters are so powerful that the trait of their humanity is not worth the extra boost in power. And I had a section where I was really talking about how Saitama would not have taken the monster cells because he enjoyed overcoming challenges and all this and all that. I'm going to make that a separate video. I think Saitama's mindset from Season 1 to Season 2 is very complicated, but I think it would be a very useful thought on why people train, why they work out, and really, why do we do anything that we do? What would happen if we accomplished our goal and there was literally nothing else for us to do? So that's something that I'll talk about in a future video. I think it's a pretty good concept. I think it's kind of philosophical. Another aspect of the monster cells is how many can your body handle. For some characters, they're able to take more, and therefore they end up as a stronger monster. This also mirrors steroids. Because again, if you're training perfectly and you use steroids, you're going to go far past your natural limit. At a certain point, the only dial for you to turn is how many steroids can you handle. Just like the characters have to see how many monster cells they can handle, you have to see how many steroids you can handle. And that moves a very physical, human, personal challenge away from your body, and maybe even your mind when it comes to the intelligent way that you train, towards the chemistry. And for some people, you have to ask, is that even why you started training? Like, did you start lifting weights so that way you could master the chemistry of it? Probably not. So that's something that you have to think about. Has your goal changed? Are you willing to sacrifice your health for this? And is this really why you started doing this in the first place? Now, it's important that I add, I'm not saying that steroids turn people into monsters. I know that some people like Dr. Mike have talked about some of the negative effects they've had mentally from taking steroids.
And I think a lot of people get that too, but they don't know it because they're not sufficiently introspective. Mm-hmm. And then they're just pieces of shit to themselves and everyone around them. And then people are like, yeah, John's an asshole. Like, John wasn't that big of an asshole until he jumped on Tren. But when you haven't been a violent, angry person for your whole life, and then you start taking steroids and you feel violent and angry, breathe in, breathe out, understand that it's not really you, and move on to doing something logical and peaceful so that you can keep your job, you don't hurt other people, and you can finish your prep without ripping someone's jaw off in the fruit and vegetable aisle of a Walmart.
But you can control yourself. You can be a cool guy. You can be nice. It doesn't turn you into a monster. You can't put the blame on steroids. Steroids are not good or bad. They have no inherent moral value. Some people can probably take them without any real mental side effects. Maybe. I don't know. No, I'm not trying to demonize people who use steroids. The main point is that steroids are a temptation that really every dude who works out has to face at some point. But you've got to remember that they require a sacrifice. You've got to sacrifice your health. And we need to be careful about making that sacrifice when we can probably make the same progress without it. It might be slower, but in the end, we'll probably end up stronger. Now, we might end up in the same spot physically. We might be physically weaker than if we took steroids. We probably will be. But you will have gained a lot of knowledge on how to train, on how your body works, and on how the body works in general. You can take that knowledge and you can help other people better themselves physically. The answer won't be, hey, just inject this chemical. No, the answer will be, hey, you need to slow down your eccentric. You need to progressively overload. You need to do drop sets for a few weeks and then see how you've advanced. So, the strength might be mental, but the strength could also be physical. With steroids, a lot of times they can increase your muscle mass and increase your strength far faster than what your body is actually meant to be able to do. And this can allow you to lift weights and to move things that your joints and tendons are not ready to move. This can lead to injuries, and yeah, those injuries can set you back. So yes, you actually might end up physically stronger without taking steroids than if you did take steroids. Now, that might sound like a stretch, but the point is that you should not ignore the benefits of being a natural lifter. Always consider why you're doing what you're doing. What drives you? What would happen if you reached your goal? If you started working out to be healthy, then for most people, steroids are probably off the table. They damage your health in many different ways, and that's not why you started lifting, if you started lifting to be healthy. If your goal is to be the best that you can be the strongest that you can be, to see what your body is fully capable of, steroids probably still are not for you. You want to see what your body's capable of. Now, how far do you want to take that? Do you want to see what you're capable of with no caffeine ever? Do you want to see what you're capable of with no cell phone? Maybe, maybe not. But you should be honest and be aware that if you're taking steroids, the drug is doing a decent amount of the work. And at some point, you're not really seeing what you're capable of. You're seeing what the milligrams of testosterone are capable of. You might be seeing how many steroids you're capable of taking, but that's a weird competition that you don't really want to get into. Now, if your goal is purely to grow as much muscle as possible or to get as strong as possible, well, maybe that is the right option for you. You might be tempted to take something. And that's your choice. If that's what you're doing with your life, if you're competing with people who are also doing the same thing, it is what it is. You just need to know that there's downsides to that. So I say all this to say, steroids aren't the right choice for most people. If you really think about what you want, steroids won't get you there. And if you are considering them, then you need to be absolutely sure that the results they give you are exactly what you want, and that they're worth the sacrifice that you're going to have to make. And that's the end of this video. I just really enjoyed One Punch Man Season 2. Once the monster cells were introduced, this is kind of all I could think about whenever I saw them. I don't care, really, if people take steroids. But I know it's something that everybody I've talked to has considered. And I just thought that One Punch Man was a pretty good metaphor on the dangers of taking them. I'll probably make a video where I talk about One Punch Man's workout routine at some point. And I will definitely make that video where I talk about, what would happen if you maxed out your goals, your gains. You couldn't get any stronger. You couldn't gain any more muscle mass, and you dedicated yourself to doing those things. What are you going to do with yourself after that's over? Forget working out. What happens if you make the most amount of money possible? You meet the love of your life or whatever. What do you do after that goal has been accomplished? So, yeah,